And welcome back to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Really local show today, which is, usually we bounce around. We'll try to hit like one local thing. We want to give some shout outs to some local news. We also have a neat baby deer local rescue with all the flooding up north. Neat story we have video from if you go to NorthcentralPa.com. An Amish DUI. We'll explain that later. And then to end the show, everything that's going on, unknowing times, we figured we would ask the important question: do you believe in the apocalypse? Is it possible? Is it coming? But before anything else, the most important question of really any day, every day, is, Mark, how are you feeling today?
Well, as you can tell, it's Wednesday, so it is cave day, as I am like a shadowy, villainous figure here in the. So other than that, I'm just wondering what's going on in your world. That we're here at noon and we're up and we're like, do you have a lunch date? Is there, like, we are punctual today?
No, I mean, do you really want to get into this? Because I'll spill the beans. I'll let people know.
What beans are we spilling?
Just the behind the scenes of how the show was made.
That we go whenever you're ready to go. You're like the diva.
I'm the diva.
You are the diva.
Here's what typically happens. I say, Mark, what do you want to talk about today? And then you'll kind of sputter around your phone and you'll bring up some incoherent stuff. And then it'll be 11:45 and you'll have brought up 12 random topics. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out how the hell to throw a couple of graphics.
I'm just spitballing ideas, buddy. That's what I do.
Yeah. What was the name of it? Thinking Out Loud? We were going to call the show Thinking Out Loud. That's basically the production of the show before.
Earlier, we had a meeting earlier and Jeff described a conversation with me as verbal bumper cars. I just keep banging it, but it gets there, but it's never smooth. And I've not been so offended in a very, very long time. It's
not so much that talking with you is rough. It's the idea of when you're in a bumper car, you're aiming and you're going. So you're like, oh, I'm going to hit that. But then all of a sudden, you get hit from the left and you veer this way and you veer that way. That's what a conversation is like with you. You're still going forward at all times, but you're just kind of always veering left and right at any possible moment.
I had one, and I don't know what the guy meant. Well, I don't know if he meant it as complimentary or I was in marriage counseling of all places. And the counselor, as we were talking, he wanted to think, he's like, I'm not surprised that you are a radio host.
Yeah.
He goes, because I would describe you as having a literary mind or something, which is funny because I don't read a lot. But he said, when you talk, he said, you can be on a topic and you can pull references out of all corners of the world.
Yeah.
But they make sense to what you're talking about. And he's like, not most people don't do it like that.
No.
And I was like, oh, that's cool.
No, it's your way. Some people, I have a tendency sometimes where I will repeat a phrase from earlier in the conversation. You don't so much repeat as much as you just drag anything from the corners of your mind that you can bring into it.
And what I take from that is the verb that Jeff used was, he didn't say you elicit or I drag,
yes,
which has such a negative connotation. There are no positive connotations to the word drag.
Oh, I disagree.
Even to the point is, this is a drag.
I disagree.
Use drag in an uplifting way.
Drag racing. It's one of the most exciting things you can see.
But that's not a verb. That's an adjective. It's an adjective.
Here's the hilarious part. I did what you asked me to do, and you still try to put me down.
Well, you cheated, but look at it. Watch this. This is what happens.
Real quick, we got a shout out from Fox 56.
Oh, yes.
And I said to you, what do you want to call the topic? You ran out of the room. You came back in, and you said, God bless Ali DeBecky. So our first topic today is God bless Ali DeBecky.
I just look, because we have no overhead lights today, and I've got a lamp. Watch how my face kind of glows as I go back and forth.
Some of that's your setup though. You've got that lamp behind the screen.
Well, I can't. Whatever. Look at that lamp here. It's light and dark and light.
Also, don't wait until 12:05
I have to shade my eyes. It's like a pop-up in an afternoon game. So, Ali DeBecky, who's the weather person on Fox 56.
Yes.
Contacted us the other night after the flooding up north and the pictures that you took the pictures, right?
Oh, no.
Oh, you just got the pictures from friends up north.
The pictures.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, and contacted us and said, hey, can we use your pictures on the news broadcast?
Yeah.
And we're like, I said to our news director who she contacted, I said, did you like puff your chest out and say, well, I have to check with corporate? And she's like, no. I said, go ahead. So Ali DeVinci used our pictures and gave us a shout out. And not only just said, like, thank you to North Central PA for letting us use the pictures. She said to the viewers, like, it's a great site. There's lots of good information on it, and you should like it. And we have like 300 new followers in like the last 2 days, which probably has a little bit to do with Ali DeBicki. So God bless you.
Wow. Yeah, that was nice of her. And then we also had recently someone used our fire footage as well.
Yeah, WBRE.
Yeah.
And I know locally Joe Garrison is big with WBRE. I don't know if Joe actually was the conduit between the two, but
yes.
Joe comments on it. He's a friend of the show, and he works at WBRE. But yeah, so they used our fire footage because we had live. Yeah. That was we had live footage of one of the Williamsport fires the other day. The
best part is obviously it's nice that they ask, but just like even the willingness to, because it is like it's a competitive field. It's a competitive what's where I'm looking for.
No, I know. Like when you get in that realm, like we are competitors, but we're not.
Yeah, because you want to give the right information and you want to give people the best news you can give them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think as we've learned through this is that people get information differently. And even we would just talk about social media. How many people get their stuff from Facebook or from Instagram or from Snapchat? So, there's people who get their news from still, watching local news at night.
Yeah.
And there's people who get their news off their phone all day. And we're like, we are competitors. We're all in it together. But thank you to Ali DeBicki for giving us a shout out. And so we will give a shout out to you guys at Fox 56.
Yes. We're going to try something different here real quick. I just got noticed in the comments from our own Facebook page, North Central PA, shooting at Little League Boulevard and Campbell Street.
It's right up here
in Williamsport.
That's like 2 blocks from here.
Yes. And they're reporting possibly 2 victims. So, typically, I don't like to do this because, we don't know anything. Yes. But because it's coming from our actual Facebook page, one of our people here in the back, I just wanted to share that. So stay with NorthcentralPa.com. We'll try to update you guys as we hear what's happening.
Wow.
Apparently there is a shooting nearby in Williamsport, Little League Boulevard and Campbell Street. Possibly 2 victims as well. So.
I'm trying to think, because Little League Boulevard runs right by the old Bethune-Douglas Community Center where Alizé's courts are.
Yes.
And Campbell isn't Campbell the one on the far side of that?
Campbell would be on the far side of the hospital if you're coming from the city.
Yeah, I think Campbell might run up the west side.
Yes.
Don't quote me on that, but
no,
Little League runs right next to it.
Yes. It would be just on the corner past Fire Tree. Is it Fire Tree?
Whatever it's called. I call it Alizé's courts because I don't know.
It would be on that corner there. So as we hear more, we'll try to let you know. Like I said, I always hesitate when I see that kind of stuff people comment because I want to make sure that we know before we post it. But because it's from somebody here, we're going to go ahead and run with it. And if they hear more, we will share it with you. Let's do this. A baby deer local rescue. I asked you 17 times if you read this story. This is my favorite part about you. You are the most clickbaity person I know. No, you will click on anything.
No, that's not true.
I get wind of a story, and here's basically the story. A baby deer is rescued from rising floodwaters. If that does not say, Mark Messina, click on me in all caps, I don't know what does. But
you make it sound like that's a bad trait.
I'm not saying that. What's a bad trait then is that when I actually think you're going to do it and you don't do it, I can't read you.
I don't know if I saw that one. If I would have seen it, I would.
So you can go to NorthcentralPa.com. You can find it. The neat thing about this is there's video of them actually helping the fawn, and then there's video of them trying to release the fawn. It's cute, it's adorable, but at the same time, there's so much bad news going on in the world, and there's so many things going wrong. It was nice to kind of see an opportunity to see a couple do something positively in our region. And it's one of those things where we'd like to think we'd always do the right thing. We'd like to think that we'd always kind of be like the savior, the hero. And in this case, like this couple was out driving around on their property. The floodwaters clearly were the word I'm looking for, like, it's not like the fawn was being swept away, but the fawn could no longer move in the water. The current of the water was officially stronger than the fawn's ability to kind of move forward. So they got out of the vehicle, retrieved the fawn, and they later tried to release it where they believed its parents or where the herd may be. Really neat story, just in Tioga County, Pennsylvania. So with all the bad news, with all the flooding, by the way, not to completely change the subject, have you seen more of the flooding photos from up there?
Well, I was just going to say, just to finish this thought, after they released the fawn back to where they thought the parents were, the fawn went home and said, hey, thanks for nothing. Like, you guys just left me there to drown. These freaking strangers pulled me out. I have not seen any of their latest flooding pictures.
There are some photos. Like the other day when we were talking about the water rescue at the trailer park, and I said, you know, we don't want to exaggerate this. We're not trying to say like trailer parks, like trailers were getting like swept away or everything. It was worse than what I thought. There were actual like trailers were kind of being shifted. There was one where a lawnmower got like leveraged underneath one of the trailers. So like real significant damage. Like there's going to be some people up in the northern tier financially and just like trying to put their life back together. It's worse than what I had thought.
I remember one, I don't think it was a movie, and I'm The Perfect Storm is coming to my head, but I think it might have even been Colin Cowherd talking about after Katrina when he was on ESPN radio. And so people, you always forget the power of water until and he was talking because he lived on the coast. I think he grew up in Washington State or Oregon or somewhere up there. Yeah. But they talk about how pretty the water is, and everyone wants to live by the water and wants to see the water until the water is raging. Yeah. And then it is so incredibly dangerous.
Yes. And that was the case up in the northern tier. I've always been fascinated. Like, we're going to talk about some of the stuff later in the show because we found a neat article on Vice about MIT predicting the apocalypse.
About that we're doomed. We're freaking
That's doomed. What they're saying. So this kind of goes along with it. I've always been fascinated by tsunamis. And like you said, just like the sheer force of it, because there's so much, like, if it's a tractor trailer, like at least there's a key and there's like a pedal and there's water, like you cannot stop it. Like once it decides what it's going to do, you are just at the mercy of it and you just have to get out of the way. Like that's like the unique thing about water.
Well, and and I read this in the tsunami, not how many years ago. Remember the one it was over in Thailand or whatever, maybe 20 that just destroyed so much. The safest place to be in a tsunami is underwater.
Underwater or deep enough, far enough out in the ocean that the ripple is not, you almost don't feel the ripple.
Right.
Like but you're right.
I read in the article about people who were scuba diving. Yep. And they said it sounded like, even underwater, because you can hear, but it's different. Mm-hmm. But they said it sounded like a jet plane was going over. And like they're on their boat and they go with their, the mask and they go backwards in and they go down there scuba diving and everything's right with the world. They come up and everything's just demolished. Yeah. And they're like, it's so weird because it went right over top of us by however many feet or, I don't know how deep they were, meters. I guess in water you measure by meters. But it just seemed, it's like the eye of the hurricane in a way. Yeah. Like being right in the middle of the hurricane, it's calm as can be. Being under a tsunami is the best place to be.
No, 100%.
So if a tsunami's coming, you grab your snorkel and you go into the water and dive.
Because I keep that in my back pocket at all times.
I'm just saying.
So just one last shout out. Kristen Beals and Russell Beals up in Tioga County. Kudos to you guys again. Go to NorthcentralPa.com. You can find the article, Baby Deer Rescued from Rising Floodwaters. You can check out the video. Really neat. And just kudos to them.
Yeah, and I agree with your sentiment that in retrospect, we all think we would always do the right thing.
But we don't. But we don't. And these two did.
And these two, yes, very well said.
Kudos to them. Thank you to Weis Markets. Be sure to go there for all your grocery needs. They have everything that you could possibly think of under the sun. Mark even got his COVID shot there. Weis, I believe 1 year Weis was like my quick Valentine's Day savior run. Like I think I ran in, grabbed some flowers, grabbed some chocolates, and then ran back out the door. So in a pinch, Weis Markets, be sure to go there for whatever it is that you need. We also have Moon and Raven Public House. We also have Eat and Run Catering and we still have the break room up on the board. Had we hit the break room?
We haven't hit the break room in a while.
Okay.
You know, one of this time of year, you realize one of the great things about Weis Markets is the vast ice cream selection.
Yeah.
Because they carry Turkey Hill brands, they obviously carry Breyer brands, and they have their own brands. And you have everything under the sun. So it's one of those that if you have a picky kid and they're like, all I eat is peanut butter Ripple and they're sold out of this brand, you just go to another one. So that's the ice cream aisle is fantastic in Weis Markets.
So in order to have a chance to win, go to the Midday Show Facebook group, join. You'll be automatically entered. If we draw your name, that fancy wheel over Mark's shoulder, he's going to spin it, and we're going to see if you land on something. You also get a T-shirt sent to you. A spiffy white shirt. It's not overdone, very subtle. I've had a lot of compliments on the shirt so far.
I think we did well with the shirt.
Yeah,
and I'm
very pleased with how much people are enjoying them.
We talked about that. When you're designing it, like do you want to make it gaudy? Do you want to make it loud? Do you want to? I think we did well.
Yeah, really absolutely.
I will pat ourselves on the back.
So today's random winner from the Midday Show Facebook group is Mary Lou Rumsey. Very excited.
The famous Mary. So we have not to be confused with Mary Lou Retton.
Nope, better.
Better than Mary Lou Retton?
Oh, yes.
How about there was an actress. Now, this is kind of probably before your time, named Mary Lou Henner. Now, it wasn't spelled like that, I don't think. I think it was more of a Mary. I don't know. But I had a buddy who was in love. I can't even tell you what she was in, but I know the name. Was she in Taxi?
I don't know who you're talking about.
Mary Lou Henner was one. But those are, as you pointed out, this is the most famous. They are in second and third place. The most famous Mary Lou is Mary Lou Rumsey.
Yes, by far.
Without a doubt. And after I spin a win, I feel good again. I got off the schneid yesterday.
Let's spin.
I got someone a Moon and Raven gift card. Mary Lou Renner. Not Renner?
That was close, though.
I got Retton and Henner, and I combined them and got Renner, and that's no one's name.
It's your show.
It's Rumsey.
It's your show.
Here we go.
Do what you want.
Winner. Chicken dinner. We should put chicken dinner on the board.
Just shy.
Just a fraction. We almost gave away 2 minutes.
That's one of the closest ones you've ever
had. That is a heartbreaker. I'm sorry. God, that sucks.
No, it's one of the closest ones you've ever had. Let's dive into this. An Amish DUI. When you first mentioned the story to me, I kind of did like a double take because it sounds like such a combative 2 words for an Amish buggy to get a DUI.
I'm just picturing this. This is me being the moron.
Do you want to tell the story first?
Well, yeah. I think it was very late May, early June. Okay. It just hit the news, but it just went through. It was like 1:45 in the morning, and a 19-year-old. There were no lights on. It was 1:45 a.m. They had no lights on the buggy, so the cop pulled him over. Because that's a lot of.
There's lights on the buggy.
You have to have lights on at 1:45 in the morning.
I guess you would have to
if you're on the roadway.
That seems contradictory to their beliefs.
Well, you could. They must be able to do it like a bicycle. You could put one that as the wheels go around, the light comes on.
You're right.
Of course, I'm right. So just like how many people get arrested for stuff because the tail light's out or they're driving without headlights and then they pull them over and they realize, well, they stop the horse and buggy and then they smell alcohol. And I guess the kid was 19, and so he's not a kid, he's an adult, but he's underage. But whatever. But my point, when I first hear this, I'm just thinking, can you imagine the cop? Just are we gonna pull over? And so then he comes up to the horse who's doing 8 miles an hour. And then say the guy tries to make a break for it and he takes off, and now the horse is doing 12 miles an hour, and the cop car just kind of pulls up a little bit. You're not going to get away, buddy. I can just imagine them calling it in or being them called. And they're like, hey, there's a horse and buggy with no lights on. Could you go? They're like, are you kidding me? I got to go pull over a horse and buggy.
How different do you think the conversation is for the kid who's driving a vehicle who has to go home and tell his parents versus the kid who's driving the buggy and has to go home and tell his parents? How different do you think those conversations are?
That's a good point. I can just, and I'm thinking of it back at the police barracks, and I'm not a cop. I've never been a cop, but just hey, what'd you do today? I pulled over a horse and buggy. He has to be I don't know.
How
This just
fast-
can't happen every day.
So here's my basic naive questions. How fast can one of those actually go?
I don't think very fast.
Okay. And so
Because
I wonder,
don't they, this is my, in the trotting races, they put straps on so the horse can't gallop.
is that what they're actually called?
What?
Trotting races?
Trotters.
Okay. I've never heard that phrase before.
Yeah, the ones where the guy's in a cart like a chariot, they're called trotters. But they have straps so they can't gallop, so they trot.
Okay.
And I think that's what they do with,
So on top of
maybe
this,
I'm wrong. Maybe they could sprint if they wanted to, and they're just so well trained.
So on top of this, like, I mean, this thing was going 5 miles per hour,
Not fast.
10 miles per hour.
Not fast.
Wow.
Well,
Okay.
it's not, and they didn't. Unlike a DUI car with swerving that you can do great danger to yourself, they were just afraid that somebody was going to come driving and not see the buggy and smash into it. And they were basically telling this guy, you need to get lights on so someone else doesn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing you can be really, really drunk and drive a horse and buggy without damaging yourself.
I would assume. I guess this would be not even the argument. I guess just because you're that close to the road, you now become your tolerance to alcohol or your level of alcohol matters now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Like, it's not like you're driving the buggy on the farm and you're away from everything. Like, if you're on like a highway, if you're on like a public road.
And now I'm on your thought.
Because you can get one on a bike, right? Like, if I was riding my bike down like Faxon and I was like teetering back and forth, and I could get a DUI, right? Because I'm on a public road.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I have more questions than answers for this story.
That is it. And now I'm going to your topic, because as a responsible adult, you leave your car there and you go get it the next day. I can imagine him going home and Amish dad going, "Where are the horses?" It's like, "Well, Dad, I'd had too much to drink at Zeb's barn, so I left him." You can't leave. What if somebody takes him?
Did you just say Zeb's barn?
Zeb. I don't know. What's his name?
No, that was good. Well, the other thing too is like when they have to impound the vehicle. So imagine the people showing up to impound the
now I'm picturing like he just leaves the horses parked along the road. He's walking home. She's like, "Nope, couldn't drive anymore. Had to leave the horses behind."
That's a great point. Did he finish the trip? Like, if you're the cop, like, what do you do with the horses?
Or you're even like, "We have to call your parents." They're like, "I don't have a phone."
There's so many questions. So many more questions.
How has this never shown up in a movie? Like Super Troopers. How is this
so it's
not?
funny you say that, because there's a movie, I'm going to blank on it now. I'll have to look it up for you. There's a movie where the guy is going to meet a girl he met online. He's going cross country.
Sleepless in Seattle.
No, their vehicle stalls out in a cornfield, and an Amish kid stops to help them. And they follow the Amish kid, and they just happen to be on Rumspringa, where they get to go. I think it's called Rumspringa.
I don't know what that means.
It's when they turn of age, they get to go out and they get to decide if they want to continue the Amish lifestyle or if they want to go the traditional route.
So it's Children of the Corn.
And they celebrate this. It's not Children of the Corn. I will find it for you.
You've seen Children of the Corn?
I think I have seen Children of the Corn.
Where all the kids kill the parents?
Yeah.
Okay. Just check.
I was young, though. I was really
It was a long time ago. Yes.
Okay. This was an article on Vice that I came across, and you and we kind of chuckled, but also too, like, we thought it would be a good conversation. So if you have comments on this, please share. We will share them. This is like an open conversation.
As opposed to the Amish buggy DUI.
Yes. On Vice, there is an article that was just recently released that says MIT predicted in 1972 that society will collapse this century. New research done shows that we are on schedule. So they took the study from 1972, they look at how they modeled it out, and what they determined that is in 2020, we are actually on pace with the model that MIT did in 1972.
Are they talking about environmentally or like attitude of the people that we're just going to kill each other?
So the idea of the most important thing of the study is like the growth of society in like bell curve tipping points. meaning you eventually get to a point where like you can't feed everybody, you can't pay everybody, you can't house everybody. The basic necessity of human needs basically reaches its bell point, and at that point, we all know how a bell curve works. It collapses on the other side, and thus it can't sustain it anymore. So it's tying in all those factors of what you're hinting at: population growth, weather, even something as simple as like the most recent pandemic and like how we move across the country and transportation and spreading different diseases. So it took all those things into account when it was talking about this. And we are on pace. So 50 years, almost 50 years removed from this MIT thing, we are like on pace with that model that MIT made.
Well, it's good. So many times in life, people get lazy, they make a plan, they get off schedule. We are on schedule for our own destruction.
Yeah, so this is the other part of it too, and we've talked about, like, I don't think I do well. Like, I am in trouble when like crap hits the fan. Like, I don't know, like, I burn easily, I have contacts, I don't have a ton of skill set that like I am a 20s skill set. Like, I don't have a lot of like the hunter gatherer.
You can't live off the land.
Listen, I'd like to think I could figure it out, but initially, like, I am not, let's put it this way, I am not the front runner like at the beginning of this race.
I would say that there is no one who grew up on a farm who would be less equipped to handle that than you.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Of all the farm kids in history, you would be like the worst.
The one thing that I have going, I really believe this. The one thing I have going for me is I am very much self-trained. Like, the majority of the things that I've learned how to do, I did not have necessarily someone teaching me how to do them. Like, for the most part, I taught myself my interests and my skills. So that lends well to me because the ability to adapt, pick up things, go with it. But if you're just talking about like basic knowledge and the basic ability to just roll with it, I am not well prepared from the get-go.
See, and what my advantage is, I am as poorly prepared as you are, but I'm just a lot older and closer to death, so I wouldn't even really have to fight it. I would just be like, well, this is the end.
So like, you're the couple on the Titanic that just laid in bed and held hands.
Yes.
That's basically if
the apocalypse comes and I'm hunting and gathering, I would be a good gatherer. I could gather. Hunting would not be my thing.
Okay.
I would have trouble.
So the two key factors in this study that basically would start the risk of collapse would be economic and industrial growth will stop, and then food production and the standard of living will decline. So those are the two main factors that they kind of like measured this stuff up. And when they compared the model to where we are at today, those things align. So our economic and industrial growth is beginning to stop. And also our food productions and standard of living have been declining for several years now. And that is kind of why they believe this MIT model is like on pace. And here's the crazy part, like I read that and my first thought was not like insane. Now listen, like, I don't think it's happening. Like, call me an optimist. Like, I don't think the apocalypse is happening anytime soon. But when I read that, I was kind of like, that I can see why that makes sense. I get it.
I can too. Dan is bringing dogs into the middle of the show.
Thanks, Dan.
Because why wouldn't we need a dog right now? What's up, Basil?
I don't know what to do with that. Okay. So real quick,
the dog looks like he doesn't want to be here.
We've got some stuff. Comments, because we appreciate your opinions. Well, I do. I don't know if Mark does necessarily. Where do you
I should have had to come back to that. I had nothing.
You're fine. You're absolutely
nothing.
Fine. Melody said a man-made apocalypse. That's a good question. In this case, they're saying it is a man-made apocalypse, right? Because it's the idea of like food production down, everything else. But some of the stuff, like, you can't. There are cases where, like, we were talking about tsunamis earlier and flooding and stuff like that. Like, there are cases where you can't, but that stuff you can't predict. Like, MIT can't predict that stuff.
No, I mean, they can try. They can take models and make, but it's not good.
Real quick, because I don't want to go down this rabbit hole necessarily. Are you into like the apocalyptic movie genre?
I hate them.
Really? See,
like,
that's one of my favorites.
Like what was the Denzel one we talked about? It's
Book of Eli. That one's tough. But like, you don't like the like 2012.
Mad Max.
Oh, but see, you're thinking of like Doom and like not Doom. You're thinking of like
They're all brown.
societal apocalyptic movies.
Yeah.
What about like the environmental apocalyptic movies?
You mean like Armageddon?
Like Armageddon, 2012, like Deep Impact.
I've never seen 2012. I've never seen Deep Impact.
Okay. You know what the other one was crazy?
So obviously, to answer your question, I don't like this genre because I never watch it.
Genre at all.
Was 2012 any good?
I enjoyed it. Listen, it's not like a award-winning film, but like if you're just talking about like grab your popcorn and like watch some stuff blow up, 2012 is pretty great. And I like Cusack too. Cusack's really underrated. He's fun.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
He's fun. Like when he's in a movie, I'm not disappointed at all.
You know what
who makes a cameo in that? Woody Harrelson makes a cameo in 2012. Yeah.
You know what Cusack's great in?
What?
Hot Tub Time Machine.
He's really good in Hot Tub Time Machine. You're obsessed with that. The movie I was referring to earlier was Sex Drive.
Which movie is that?
The one where they run into the Amish kid in the cornfield and he takes him to Rumspringa.
There's a movie called Sex Drive.
Yes.
Whose one of their main characters is an Amish kid.
It's not one of their main
I don't
characters.
like the connection.
It's like it's a travel movie. So like they keep running into different people.
Okay, so the drive part is a reference to the travel.
He is going cross country to meet up with this girl to hook up with her. Because they met online, but he lied about who he is.
Because that's what people do online.
Correct. So now he's going to be this person. So you brought up, why hasn't anybody ever used this movie? And Sex Drive, like it's one of the moving plot pieces, like one of the moving.
See, now here's just in my aspect. If I hear of a movie called Sex Drive, I think they're trying too hard. And I don't think I'd watch it.
It was cute. I mean, it wasn't one of my favorite comedies.
Did you lie about who you were when you were on like?
No, but see, I was pre where you could really like that was even a thought necessarily. I was kind of like pre catfishing.
You weren't like 6'3" and
no.
You didn't say that. And you were
now in my basketball program. It said I'm 6 foot.
Does it?
Yeah,
you
are.
My
Lock Haven basketball program. It says 6 foot.
Absolutely, you are.
Yeah,
depending on what you're standing on.
Robert said again, Seth Green is the Amish guy, which makes it even better.
Oh, geez.
It's really good. I'm surprised you don't, like, why does that bother you?
What?
I don't know. Just, like, it bothers you that that's the main plot of a movie?
Or
it bothers you that it is
Sex Drive, Amish child. I can't get past that.
Okay.
It just seems wrong.
No, it's understandable. Mary Lou Henner was in
Taxi. Okay.
Yes. Lisa knew that.
I have a buddy that would have just, I'm trying to think, cut off his right arm. And I don't think Mary Lou would have found him very, desirable if he had no right arm. But he was, and I'm going to have to go pull up a picture of her after it's over. He loved Mary Lou Henner.
Okay. Yeah.
Not to be confused with Mary Lou Rumsey, who was our winner today.
Correct.
And got a T-shirt and almost got something on the wheel, but I suck at spinning.
Briar and Turkey Hill ice cream. Do you have a favorite brand of ice cream?
No, what's funny is it kind of depends there are certain companies that do flavors better. I love Briar's chocolate chip mint or mint chocolate chip, whatever they call it. It's white.
Okay.
It's not the green one. I love Briar's vanilla bean.
Okay.
If you are going to go, you're going to go like
my parents like that
hoity-toity, like apple pie a la mode, there is no better vanilla ice cream to put on it than. But there's other ones. Cookie dough. I like Turkey Hill a lot better. I like any of the chocolate, peanut butter cup, whatever. Is that what I'm calling it?
Yeah. Peanut butter.
Yes, because peanut butter ripple is with vanilla. Peanut butter cup is with chocolate. I like Turkey Hills. So it's weird.
So Briar or Turkey Hill?
I like Briar's. I like Turkey Hill. It's just.
You don't have a favorite.
It's different.
Okay. Yeah, I can't argue that. This one, Amy says, I didn't think the Amish drank alcohol, but then Melody, there it is. Rumspringa is what I was thinking of.
I've seen clips on that. It's very almost, I'm not trying to modernize the Amish because I know that kind of goes against. Yeah. I can understand once upon a time when they're 18, I guess they're kind of thrown out into the world and you can leave the family and leave everything behind and go out into the world. nowadays they should change it to like 21, 22, because an 18-year-old can't survive in the world anymore.
Probably not.
You can't get a job. Well, now you could actually. You go show up at a factory and you get a job. But like rent, how are you going to go? Where are you going to live? It's
right.
But I saw a show on this, which I found it interesting. Maybe nobody else does. But it was a guy who had escaped, if you will, and he helped Amish kids. Like, they know who to contact and to try to say, like, if that's not the life you want, we can get you set up with an apartment. We can try to get you set up with a job. Right. But they're so far, I don't say behind the real world.
No, I think the point that you're trying to make is to send people out to try to figure out the world at a time in their life where like adults almost are having a hard time figuring it out. So it's weird that you toss somebody out there when, like, 25-year-olds are trying to figure this stuff out, and you're just going to toss them out there when they're 18 and say, like, let me know if you like this or not.
Yeah, like I have a daughter who's going to be she's a rising senior in high school. Yeah. She'll turn 18 in December. And to throw her out in the world in January, even through schooling, it's like she's been educated, she's a smart kid. What would she do? Without help, there's no way. There's no way.
I totally agree. Here's the joke of the day. Those Amish buggies have a lot of horsepower. That was good. You like that? That was good.
I do. Very good.
Mary says the Amish do a lot of things we don't think they do. I believe that. I actually don't know. I don't know enough about Amish culture as I should, being in central
being part Amish.
Not part Amish, but being in central Pennsylvania.
Well, I do know that because I saw this part of the show, that up until they're 18, they have a lot more freedom than you would think. Okay. And one of the kids that they interviewed in this, because that was part of it, of when you turn 18, who's going to stay on the farm, who's going to go out and check the real world. Some of them go out and live it up for a little while and then go back, and however it works out. Okay. But this kid had speakers, and I mean, he had speakers in the back, and his horse and buggy and he's thumping AC/DC as you driving down the road, and you would think like, no, but there is that level of the Amish kids. They're still kids, and they're allowed. And then as they become adults, when they make the decision, like, I'm going to stay or I'm going to go. Yeah. And I'm sure the vast majority of them stay. I would just think.
So this one's kind of interesting. Lena said, I knew some Amish brothers down near Lancaster that drove their horse and buggy to a nearby farm every day, where they rented a barn to stable their race horses. That farm had a training track on it. The brothers also owned a pickup truck, horse trailer, and a small horse van. They had their help drive the rigs while they ride in them as passengers to get to the fairs and racetracks where they raced their horses. The brothers each had their own colors, and they drove their own horse. So maybe they do, like, I don't know. I guess this is the issue that I have. I picture the Amish Society almost like they're in their little world, in their little circle. And I feel like I have that very wrong after this discussion today.
Yeah, you're not totally wrong.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of that they have drivers, that they can own a car. They just can't, I think, and maybe I'm speaking out of school here, but I know, like, when they do, you'll go around and you'll see constructions and you'll see Amish people putting on roofs and putting on stuff. And I know that in a lot of those aspects, the person that hired them would have to go pick them up in the morning and then transport them back home in the afternoon.
Okay.
Or I know an Amish guy that was going out to look at a job. He was going to put on a deck for a guy, and his friend drove him to the job site and drove him back in a really, really nice pickup truck. Now, I don't know if the friend owned the pickup truck. I don't know if the friend was paid to drive. I don't know how it all worked. But yeah, it is, considering how close we are to it here in central Pennsylvania, we do know very little about it.
I know almost really nothing about it other than what I've seen portrayed in, like, movies or television shows. Like
what was the Amish Witness?
Witness.
Have you ever seen Witness?
Oh, yeah. Like one of the key words you kept saying there was job. Like outside of a job, I don't know if I've ever really seen them do anything else. And I think that's why my portrayal of them is like they're in their own little world.
Well, yeah, like in our world of extracurriculars, you've never showed up at a basketball game and seen an Amish kid on the court against you. Because they just don't.
Or even like if I'm downtown eating, or if I'm just like, so in my head, but to your point, like they are out and about. And I guess what I'm saying, like, they have to have hobbies. Like they have to have hobbies. They must have passions. Like they must have things that they're doing, like they're not just going home and sitting around all the time when they're not doing jobs.
Right. And I had an Amish client once and I called, he had this phone. And
so this is the other part. Like they must go to the bank. Like they must. So see, like I'm just so naive. Like this is just how dumb I am. I just never pieced together like to function in this society. They must go outside of the world that has been portrayed to me through pop culture.
Yes, they do leave their farm.
Oh, they must.
Yeah, I would. And dumb was not the right word there. A lot of times you are dumb. In this case. Just there's like naive and uneducated doesn't. I mean it is. We don't know much about them.
Yeah,
we don't talk in our society. We just don't talk about them very much, even though they're right over the mountain in a lot of places.
Real quick, one of the last comments that I have here today. 25 to 30-year-olds are having a hard time making it in the world today. I'm not sure if she's referring to the apocalypse conversation or to the conversation.
No, I think to the Amish.
About the. Yeah, I mean, this is more just like about people more than the Amish. I just think like being tossed into anything when you're 18 and then saying like 3 months later, did you enjoy that? I don't know how many people would be like, yeah, I loved it.
I know a 49-year-old that's having trouble making it in the world today, so I'm not going to make fun of anybody.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be the case. I love Weis chocolate ice cream. They stopped selling my favorite. There's chocolate almond. No, the almond. You lost me with the almond.
Almond, no. There's not a lot you can do to mess up ice cream. Throwing almonds or pecans, like butter pecan, I would just pass if butter pecan, or I would be the little kid that would just eat around the pecans and I would have a bowl full.
Yeah.
Did I tell you the other night I had ice cream for dinner? Did I tell you that story?
You've told me before. I
was going to a Little League game and I thought it started at 5:45. And I texted my buddy, who's one of the coaches. He's like, it's 5:30 start. So that took 15 minutes out. And I knew I was going to be late anyway.
Right.
And I was like, I can either stay here or there's an ice cream place right on the way. So I had 2 scoops of ice cream for dinner and it was it tied me over.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong.
I wouldn't make a habit of it. But the other night, Monday night, ice cream for dinner and it worked.
It did work. Darcy says the new generations today are doomed with our economy. So this kind of goes back to like the apocalypse thing and just like younger people going into society. This is what I will say. And this is kind of like, I'm going to play devil's advocate here with Darcy a little bit because I feel like she's probably talking a little bit like I'm probably on the cusp of the generation she's referring to. Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably the oldest members of the generation she's referring to.
That she hates.
I will say this. That she hates. No, Darcy, I'm sure Darcy doesn't hate us. I went through, this would have been probably like 2 or 3 years ago. I went through basically like a rough budget of the things that I was spending on and everything else. And what I realized was like probably a third of it I did not need. Like if you took it away, whether it was subscriptions and
as opposed to the rest of us who are just spending money on essentials.
Well, no, but I'm just saying like I really didn't need the things that I were doing. And I would argue that up to almost a half of it were things that like, if you took away from me, like I would be getting by. I may not enjoy the fact that they're being taken away. So the point that I am making is my generation and below me, we have been kind of like sold on this idea of like, you have to have the phone, you have to have the TV subscriptions, you have to have the video game system, you have to have, but like those aren't needs. They are not necessities. So I think the hardest thing for my generation is recognizing that because you have had it from day one.
I think the change that society's seeing, and I've been thinking this for a while, and I just saw it in a movie again. Did you ever see Red Rock West?
I don't think so.
With Nicolas Cage. It's an underrated movie from the 90s, but he was in the Midwest or out in the West or whatever, and he was just this roughneck looking for work, and he was trying to get it on an oil rig, and he went to one town and he was going to another town. I think the tipping point for especially our American society, and we just saw this through COVID and we're seeing it now. There was a time where people were looking for work, and like this movie exemplified it, but there were generations that were just like, Bob needs a job and Bob got a job here. And with our society where we are right now, like the pandemic, people lost jobs.
Yeah.
But there were other jobs that were available, but society's got to an entitled point where they're like, but I don't want that job. I want to do what I want to do.
Yes.
And that is going to be, because as society adjusts, and you just talked about farming and food production and things, we are going to get back to the point. There's lots of jobs in society that make money, but don't make society any better and don't produce anything and we're going to get to a point where they're like, these are the jobs that need to be done for society to survive. And when does our citizenship get back to the point of like, well, I'm going to take the job just because it's a job and I need the job, as opposed to kind of the spoiled culture that we get in, that like, this was the job I had and I liked it. Now I've lost the job, so I'll just collect the unemployment, as opposed to going, because everybody and their mom's hiring, but you took away the job that I liked. So now I'm going to do nothing until you bring me back another job that I like.
I don't mean, you may have talked about this before, the cost of getting people to do a job they don't want to do. This will be the first time that it ever will have to be worked into the wage in which they are receiving. It'll be the first time. Yes. It'll be the first time. So if you were paying X amount to have somebody do that job, but it's a job that people don't enjoy doing, you are now going to have to add almost like a tax, like a appreciation tax, like a bribe tax to that position, and then it will start to balance.
I saw an article, or it was either an article or an ad somewhere that said a pizza shop that was paying their employees $16 an hour said there was no employee shortage. And they were basically saying, and that's where it's going to come to, because you're going to have fewer and fewer pizza shops, because you're going to have fewer and fewer people working. So this is how the whole cyclicalness of the economy and the pandemic, and then the stimmy checks and the unemployments and all this stuff, you're going to get more free money, and you're going to be able to spend that free money on pizza, but the pizza is going to cost more because there's only one pizza shop left, because all the other ones went broke, and the one pizza shop left is now paying their employees $16 an hour. So it's all like, economics is supply and demand, and there's only so much money and it gets passed around, and it's all gonna find its own level.
Well, because there's like 1,000 different ways to go with what you just said. The part that sticks out to me is a lot of times when you hear people talk about technology in the workforce, right? And the idea is technology is going to steal jobs, right?
Right.
But what no one ever talks about is how technology has given people, it's created the ability to create entrepreneurs and create bosses, because society was set up to create jobs. It was not originally set up to create bosses. So what's
correct? Other than the farming community, once you got out of farms, because you were your own boss on the farm. But yes you're right.
So the problem now is like, you have this place where before, if you wanted to kind of climb your way up, you convinced people to work for you for a minimum wage, and they did your bidding, and they did for a paycheck. They did what you needed to get done so that you could go and do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And the problem now, like, those people are hard to find because technology hasn't technology has stolen jobs. Like, if you go to a warehouse and you go, like, I'm not saying it hasn't stolen jobs, but more than stealing jobs, what technology has done is it has individualized the workforce. Mm-hmm. It has allowed people to make a living without necessarily having somebody over top of them.
Yes, and now that we've gotten to this cerebral and boring, and I'm sure nobody's listening anymore, but what people couldn't see is when they saw technology and they're like, yes, people are going to lose these jobs. And I remember one of the examples I gave there, the operator, when people used to call and say, hey, I need the phone number for, XYZ pizza.
Yeah.
And they're like, with all this technology and automated, we're going to lose these people, and automation is going to eliminate these jobs, which they're right. And automation has eliminated all kinds of jobs.
Yes.
But what they couldn't see, and what nobody could really predict, is the jobs that it was going to create.
Yes.
Or even not even jobs, because you're right. The opportunities
Yes.
that it was going to create. And who knew that there would be TikTok people and YouTubers and making money?
Yeah.
If a kid at 8 years old would have looked at their mom and said, I'm just going to make a YouTube channel, I'm going to make a really good living, they would have been like, you're out of your mind, because nobody saw that coming.
No.
So it is right. We've lost jobs due to technology, but it's created a billion.
Oh, absolutely. There's a really just kind of like, I think this will put like a nice bow on what we just talked about. There was a really neat article done about how one of the biggest flaws, or one of the things that most people missed like through the 90s as the internet was coming to age, was this idea of everybody was trying to buy up oil and buy up water and buy up all these assets. And what nobody realized was the number one asset was going to be information, and that information would be free. So how do you convince people to work for you or do that when they now think they can just go out and do it themselves? Because the information is free and it's there, and it's like you joke about all the time. Like a lot of people my age, like the other day you said somebody said something about a roof, and they said, oh, well, can I YouTube how to fix that? Because that's the generation's philosophy is, well, I don't necessarily need you to pay me to do that, because I could just go do what you're doing and I can learn how to do it, because all the information I need and everything is out there for me to get it. And so how do you predict that? How do you prepare for that? You really couldn't. And so now you have this economy that's the whole backbone of this economy is the idea of like, I go to work for somebody and they work for somebody else. And then there's a few of these pillars at the top. And just the way the internet and information has changed, that's not going to withhold. It isn't.
It's fascinating because I'm in real estate, and in dealing with clients, and when you're buying a house and you do home inspections, and there's things that you can ask for. And yeah, you're right. This isn't totally perfect generalization, but as older people, some of them are like, well, I want this fixed and this fixed and this fixed and this fixed, because when I move in, I want the house to be perfect. And this younger generation, it's one of the youngest clients I've ever had, but we were talking about, well, and in time you're going to need a new roof. And we're talking about how, bidding on the house, but it's a really competitive market, and to get the house. And the thing that she said was, well, how hard is it to put on a roof? Can I just YouTube it?
Right.
And I was like, well, you probably could but everything that came up with, okay, you're going to have to do, like, to seal the driveway. We can ask them to seal the driveway. She's like, well, can I seal the driveway? I'll just YouTube it.
Yes.
And because all these things, and the old person would think, well, why wouldn't I pay them to do it? Well, because when you're in a competitive market and you've got 4 buyers for every one house, and you're trying to buy one, you're trying to make your offer as attractive as possible. And if they're like, nope, you don't have to worry about, I'll take care of the roof, I'll take care of all these things. Yeah. But that was the whole attitude. I can just figure out how to do it off YouTube. And that is an advantage that your generation has that my generation didn't.
No,
because we're not that self-sufficient.
Yeah, I mean, to go back full circle, and we talked about, like, I don't think I'm prepared for the apocalypse, but it's that resourcefulness. Like, I think people my age and younger than me, like, there is this idea of, like, we don't necessarily need someone to teach us, like, but if you give us the book or the video or whatever, like, we'll find it. And the other crazy part, like, we know how to find it.
Well, that's, and what's made it worse, and I've said this before, I think I've said it on the air. I know I've said it privately, that growing up, our parents knew this, and we were kids, and our parents were always smarter than us until we got, but the kind of that whole life growing up, we were dumber than our parents. And now, because of where technology is gone and it changes so fast, that now we always go to I go to my kids all the time to help me with stuff. When it's time to get the UFC fight, and we have to move equipment around, and we order it through the Xbox, I I'm the one that carries the TV. My son orders it and hooks it up and sets it all up, and he's 14. Right. So we've become so dependent. And I've always said, my generation, I'm 49 years old, we were dumber than our parents. And now because of technology, we're dumber than our kids. So my people of my age group are going to spend our whole lives being dumber than everyone around us. And like it is, and now we become, because if there's a technology thing, I could learn how to do all the stuff that you do here, but you know how to do it, so I just let you do it. And if there was a I just had, now Jerry's older than me, but Jerry's a kind of an anomaly. But I had an issue with a Facebook thing, and I took a screenshot of it, and I showed it to him, and I said, what do I do? Because that's what my generation knows, that technology, I could either learn it, or I could ask someone who's 19 years old, and they can fix it for me in 45 seconds.
Right.
And the other thing, that the advantage that you have, and that my daughter has, and that if you don't know, you guys just dive in and figure it out. And I'm intimidated by it because it moves so fast.
What I've always liked about like my generation and the people below me is like, we are much more okay being wrong than most people. Like, I know that are older than me. Like there's a sense of like, you're not going to get like whacked in the back of the head because you biffed that, or you said something wrong, or there's this sense of like, failure is okay as long as I'm learning from it. And I don't think that's the case for every generation. Like the example I always give people, it's the going over and shutting the game off. Like when I was growing up playing Mario, like you tried a bunch of different things, and if it didn't work, you reset the game and you tried again. And like you just kept resetting the game until you finally won it. And that mentality is very much unique to like the younger generation of just kind of like, well, we'll try it again, or we'll try it again, or like, what's the worst that could happen? And some of it is like societal, like some of it is like, we are in a position where we have no choice. Like we have to be that way. Like there is a little resiliency to it. But also too, like we've also had devices our entire life where like, you reset it, you know, like you get the next, like, this sounds stupid. You have a phone for a year, and then you get the next phone, and then you get the next phone, and then so there is this idea of just like repeat, recycle, try again, like repeat, recycle, try again. So,
well, I know I've said this to you and Jerry around here. The greatest trait that you have is that your persona is, I can just figure it out. And you are willing to dive in, and you may figure it out in 15 minutes. You may figure it out in 15 hours, but you know that all the information is in there, and you'll get it, and you'll find it, and you'll be able to piece it together. And I don't have that.
And I also know that it's okay if I don't get it the first time. That's like the biggest one.
But the difference between me and you is, you know, if you don't get it the first time, you'll still get it. It's in there and you'll figure it out. I know when I dive in, I may never be able to figure it out.
See, that was perfect. That was beautiful, because that's the only difference between us.
It is.
I think I will find it.
No.
And you think and you think you won't.
You know you'll find it, and I don't know if I will.
Correct, but I know I'll find it because I won't stop. And the difference is, you won't find it because there is a stopping point for you. Like after 15 minutes, you'll just be like, well, I don't think I can do this.
Yes, but it's because of a technological gap.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like that doesn't apply to everything in life.
Right.
I'm just saying, like in that example, again, I think people underestimate. There's so much conversation about like, what's this younger generation going to be like how much has being on a phone affected them, and those types of things. But I think this generation just below me, I think they're fascinating. I think they are so much, I think intellectually, they're significantly deeper than what the older generations think. And I also think like from a problem solving standpoint, they may be like one of the best generations we've had in like a century.
Well,
from a problem solving, creating, like it's pretty impressive.
And we've been here an hour now and no one is listening anymore. But just think of what these kids, like my son is about to be, he just finished 8th grade. He's about to be a freshman in high school. He is turning 15 in August. Did something just happen? Are you okay?
No, I'm good. I'm just looking to see what's going on.
Oh, I thought it just went
just
dark.
Looking through the comments.
I can only imagine what him and his friends have seen on their phones. And they are so much, I don't know if numb to it is the word, but in a way, they're so much more mature and worldly because they have all the access to the world that I do.
Can I take 10 seconds from you?
Sure.
When I grew up, because I didn't have the phone and the internet was still kind of figuring itself out, like I knew how to do all of it, there was a naivety to me that this generation has jumped over.
Amen.
The things that I thought I knew when I was 17, 18, the generation below me, they were figuring this stuff out when they were 10, 11, and 12. And they really were.
Maybe that's one of the reasons that they are so tolerant with all the LGBTQ and because they're so unfazed by, I mean, it's all, we go back to like teaching kids languages, and you're like, if you have a 4-year-old, a 4-year-old can learn 2 languages at the same time. Yeah. And we don't understand why. So, but they're just like, the 4-year-old brain is unfazed, and the 4-year-old brain can handle it and can adapt it and figure it out. Maybe because these teenagers growing up have seen everything, that they're just unfazed. So they're like, oh, who cares if this person is transgender? Who cares if they're gay? Who cares if they're non-binomial or what? You know, that they're just, their life has been so vast that they're just not even, because in our world, you know, how old were we when we were sheltered until we're like, oh, that person's gay? And you're like, oh my God, that's news. To them, nothing is news because what the thing that's news is there's a glitch in the Mario game and you can beat it by jumping this way instead of.
100%. That was great. I enjoyed that.
No one else did, but we did.
We're crushing it.
We're not crushing.
We're crushing it.
And this is what, because Jeff is the wizard behind the curtain. He knows how many people are watching at all times. He sees the comments. I'm seeing it just like you are. I'm like watching TV and I have no idea of anything that's going on behind the scenes. And so the times that I will say no one's listening and Jeff's like, no, they are. He knows and I don't. I'm just speculating.
No, there's always people listening. You should know that by now.
There's parts, I just realized there's topics that I find interesting that I know nobody else does. But what's weird is that a lot of times you and I find the same things interesting from different aspects. So I believe that we're the only two, we're talking to ourselves.
Sometimes, like a show like today, we went with the comments. Like the comments led us to this conversation. It's not like you and I just got on and thought we would be talking about like why the generation below me is resourceful, right? Like we were led to this by the comments. So I disagree. I think there's people that are interested. I also think that a lot of times the conversations you and I have, like we kind of pulled the curtain back the other day and said like, this is how we talk when the camera isn't on. Like these are the things where
thinking out loud.
But I think also too, like, I think the majority of people wonder these things. Like, even if they're not having conversations about them, they are things that like they notice or that they wonder. There's just like, where's the content to discuss that or to have that conversation? So
I'll tell you this too, and I learned this from radio. People would come up to me and we would dive into this topic about something, the Super Bowl, the NCAA Final Four, and things that were really, really like sports centric. And it shocked me, the comments that or the text that I would get from people about comments that we made, that it was kind of a throwaway sentence. But they're like, this is what really made me laugh. And this is what really hit home. And those are the things. I got a comment from someone who read my book, and they actually took a picture of it, of this paragraph, and sent it to me. And when I wrote it, it was almost a throwaway paragraph. I was trying to lengthen. I was trying to get more words in. And I was like, that, to me, of all the stuff I wrote, it really just didn't mean that much. But to this person, it was the thing that most resonated with them in the whole book. And that it's fascinating to think what we think was important and were good points in the conversation, and what other people took from it and what resonated with them.
Yeah. My biggest regret growing up, because it goes a little bit along with what you're saying, one of my biggest regrets growing up was like, I kept a lot of this stuff internally. Like the way that I
Because you grew up on a farm, you know what to talk to.
kind of, I mean, I grew up in a small town, and it was, like small towns, it's not that, like, I don't think small towns are slower or dumber, but there is a simplicity to small town living. And so a lot of times, like the way I would look at the world or the things that I would want to talk about or break down or curious about, they just weren't common topics. Like they just weren't things that the everyday person was walking around talking about. So
You just have limited opinions around
correct.
you.
Yes. So one of my biggest regrets was like not having the ability or the opportunity, or to be honest with you, the confidence to go and find people to talk about this stuff with and like really delve into it and dive into it and figure stuff out and challenge my opinions. And that's one of my biggest regrets is I wish I would have been willing to speak about the things I do now in the conversations 10 years earlier, 15 years earlier, instead of waiting. And maybe that's the biggest difference with the generation below us.
You probably have some of the most like intellectually advanced goats because that's who you had your conversations with on the farm. Did you guys raise goats?
No, there were no animals.
You had no, then
There
that
were no
ruins my
animals.
joke. I thought every farm had animals.
Well, it's funny. You said goats, and I thought you were saying like greatest of all time.
Oh no!
So I was trying to.
Because I knew if you you didn't grow up on a dairy farm, so I knew you didn't have cows, and I didn't think you had horses.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like, what animals? I thought goats was kind of like the next. I thought all farms had goats.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? Did I ever tell you one of my greatest regrets as a kid growing up is, that I went in the '80s when rap music was just coming in. You had to pick sides.
Okay.
It was right now like Republican, Democrat.
Okay.
You couldn't be both. And I don't, I enjoy rock and roll music much more than I enjoy rap music. Now there are the hip hop legendary songs that everyone likes, just like there's the rock and roll legendary songs that everyone likes,
Sure.
no matter what side you're on. But because what I love, like history and story, the stories that are told in rap music that I missed out on.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't listen. Like I go back now, I love Straight Outta Compton,
Okay.
the movie.
Yeah.
I love it. And the stories that, if you've seen the movie, cruising down the street in my 6'4",
Yeah.
is a classic scene in the movie, and it kind of is a launching point.
Yeah.
But the stories that are behind the songs, like I didn't like the music and stuff the way it sounded, but it's almost folkish. It's folk.
Oh, yeah,
If
absolutely.
you like Bob Dylan, I don't love Bob Dylan's voice. But the stories that he can tell with the songs, and that's what I missed out on. And it took me until I was in my like late 30s, 40s to be like get past the way the story is delivered.
Yeah.
And get to what they're saying.
My perfect, because I 100% agree with you. And the reason I do is I never really learned about like my Polish heritage because my grandfather's way of trying to do that was through polka music. And I just hated it. I just never could get into it.
Roll out the barrel.
Yeah. Now, as I've gotten older, I've learned to like appreciate and everything else. But I missed out on like a huge chance to really learn about my heritage because I just hated polka music. So I agree with you. Like the things that you push away when you're younger that you then kind of reflect back on because you couldn't get past how it was being delivered to you.
Right.
And so I missed out on a lot of that stuff because of polka music.
And I remember as a parent, one of my enlightening things, and now we're here now and nobody's listening. I think some people went back to work. There was a comedian who was incredibly vulgar.
Does he have a name?
Yes.
It's okay if you get
Jim Jeffers.
Oh, Jim Jeffries.
He's
He's one of my favorite.
He's brilliant.
Yeah.
And he was talking about something, and I knew my daughter would like it. And my daughter was about 14. She's now a freshman. She's going to be.
Okay.
And I remember her, and I said to her, when you watch this, it wasn't the whole. It was a segment of a comedy show.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is going to be more vulgar than you're used to. He says F a lot. Get past the delivery and get to the message because the message is very, very intelligent.
Yeah.
And it's that aspect that I've got to my kids that are like, get past just get to what they're trying to say and peel away the way they say it, because your taste might not appreciate it. And that's what I missed about rap music.
Yeah.
That I missed what they were saying because I just liked guitars and drums and males singing high-pitched tunes. And you could slow dance a lot better to I Remember You than you could to F the Police.
No, 100%.
That is a good what did they well, I guess the whole R&B, they had the slow jams they had. It was just a different, they don't have slow dance rap songs. It's just a different.
Well, I mean, then it was R&B.
They had the Barry Whites and the Luther Vandrosses.
Yeah, before you were here today, shout out to Boom City. I'm pretty sure the entire staff at like 9:30 this morning were singing Casey and JoJo All My Life. And the place in here was rocking. So shout out to Boom City.
I don't know Casey and JoJo All My Life.
Yes, you do.
See, this is another thing. My kids do this to me all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know who they are, and they're like, yes, you do. And then they play it, and then I'm like, oh, I do. Okay.
Yes, you do. Benjamin said, I was born and raised in a small town called Dillsburg, Pennsylvania, northern York County. We did not much have.
I know. I drive by. I know where Dillsburg is.
There we go. We did not have much in our town, but classic rock country, and lots of religious stuff. But I got into banjo music because banjo music was really popular in my town in the 90s. Ricky Skaggs. Have you ever gotten into banjo music?
You know who is no, but you know who's a great banjo player? Steve Martin. The comedian.
Yes, because he does some of it in his special he just did with Clifford. He's in the movie Clifford. Martin Short. Yes. I
was going to say Rick Moranis.
And he plays the banjo.
He is a fantastic banjo player.
Okay. The closest thing I have to that would be I listen to the Oh Brother Where Our soundtrack like once a month.
Oh.
That would be like the closest thing I have to that.
It's just interesting too, I guess, to go roundabout what we think is cool and what we turn away. It's like the most basic element is food. And your parents are like, just try it. You might like it. You'll never know what you're going to like and what you don't like until you try it.
Yeah.
And as kids, we're too dismissive right away without.
Oh, yes.
And how much so what'd he say in his 20s? Yeah. He learned that he appreciated banjo music. Because I'm sure it ain't cool, no matter what county you're in, to say in Pennsylvania as a 13-year-old to be like, I'm into banjo music.
Right.
Because that doesn't play in the junior high locker room.
You don't think so?
No.
No, it doesn't.
And it's too bad that it doesn't, because there's a lot of stuff out there that we would like if we gave it a shot.
I totally agree.
I wonder how many, and this is one of the reasons I like doing the show, is because if we were 16 years old and loved the movie La La Land, I don't know if you could say that out loud as a jock, a guy.
I think now you
can do it better now than we could have.
I would guess you definitely couldn't have.
We could not have.
I'm going to say I was probably borderline, close, but you see, you had to think about it, you had to make the decision. I think now it's shifted. I think they can just
like what they like, and listen.
It's okay. Not everywhere. Everybody's circumstance is different. But I think now it's way more tolerable than what it was. I mean, there were certain things that I liked going through high school that I didn't tell anybody. I used to writing was one of my favorite things to do, and I didn't tell soul body.
Well, and I've talked about this, and people have told me that I should sit down with I should do writing seminars for high school. I didn't there were 5 people that knew that I wrote. Yeah. Because I grew up in a jock world where there was no crossover. Maybe there was a little crossover, but not much. Yeah. And now when I was in a play, I'm in the theater, all kinds of people write. And they're I've tried. But yeah, depending on what group you fit into, you can't talk about I have Shakespeare's poetry. I bought that book because it was all of Shakespeare's poems in one book. So I bought it.
And I used to be, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that in the football locker room, they're like, what? You bought what?
Yeah. The other thing, I used to be, the two things that I used to be really into documentaries, still am obviously. But I remember being 14, 15, 16 and scouring the internet, trying to find these documentaries on different things. And I was terrified to tell, I was terrified to tell my friends. Like why would I tell my friends I watched a documentary on like World War II last night? Like,
Did I tell you this? My son was watching while he was playing a video game. He was watching it's called Foods That Created the World.
Okay.
You've told me about it, I think. And I was like, why are you watching this? And it was like from the early 1900s, Foods That Build America, I think it's called.
Yeah. And
I said, yeah, my buddy, they told me about this with that. He was like, yeah, I watched it.
Yeah.
And he'd already seen it. And I was like, you're 14. Why are you watching this? He's like, because it's really good.
Just such a different generation.
It is.
It's a really, I'm telling you, they don't get credit. I'm not saying, listen, no generation's perfect. We all have our ebbs and flows and flaws. This generation coming up through right now, like from like 14 to like 20, is really fascinating.
They're a lot smarter than we would ever do.
There's an understanding for the most part too, like there's an acceptance that did not exist beforehand. Like it's just a really different group. It's a different generation. And,
I
in
agree.
a lot of positive ways too. I agree. But I guess we can end it here whenever you want. The other one,
we should have ended it probably a half hour ago.
No, we're crushing it. We're crushing it.
We are not crushing it. I can see it in your eyes.
You're being disrespectful.
No one is listening.
You're being disrespectful to the viewers that have stuck with us.
We don't, because there are two of them. One of them is
I love you, Mark does not, if you're still watching.
No, I don't. I'm just saying, like, no one's listening anymore.
I disagree. But the other one too was like, I am, and you and I talked about this, like I am a crier. It does not take a ton to like move me. Now my players know this just because of like locker room.
You cry in the locker room?
Oh, well, listen, when you're successful, there's a lot of moments where you get to kind of like bring it all together, and it's very fortunate.
Fist bump.
Very fortunate.
Way to go.
Thank you.
We're supposed to win.
But I remember,
supposed to win. Now get off the field.
I remember the first time I ever watched, this is crazy. I was like 13 and we watched the movie Hardball with Keanu Reeves.
Terrible movie.
A terrible movie.
Oh.
Spoiler alert. There is a death at the end of the movie that is like heartbreaking.
It's sad. Yeah,
it's very sad.
That's sad. The movie
and so
sucked.
I'm in the living room with like 3 of my buddies and some girls. And I'm like 13, 14. And like I start crying. And it was like one of the most embarrassing moments. Like I was truly devastated.
You were just working the room. The girls flocked to you.
I wasn't. And it has taken, and to be honest with you, like it took a long time for me to like recognize that it was acceptable. Like that it was okay to like cry at a movie or like be moved by a movie. But I think that was just, I think it was generational. I think it was small town. And I think too, just like I said, like that naivety, like you just back then, like you just didn't know.
What did the girls say?
I mean, they like, nobody really said anything, partly because I think they didn't know what to say. But yeah, like that was like a big.
You tried to play it to your advantage.
I mean, what else are you going to do? Like you don't, like your options are very limited at that.
Good point.
Your options are very limited to that point. I actually, we could have my buddy on someday because he was there. He knows, if he's watching, he knows exactly what I'm referring to.
If he's watching, he's the only one still watching.
It's unbelievable. It's like you don't want people.
So what, like afterwards, were your friends like, dude, you're a loser?
They, again, like, I don't think anyone said anything because I don't think anybody knew like what to do, like what to say. But it goes back to my point of like, I think 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there was just this idea of like what was acceptable and what wasn't. And I just had been in this small town world generationally where like, you didn't cry at movies. Like who cried at movies? Like who got moved enough by a movie to like, so I think this generation's very different. I think it would be much more acceptable now.
I didn't cry at the birth of my kids.
Have you ever cried at a movie?
I've gotten like emotionally charged and like teary-eyed. You know where I get the most emotionally wrapped up, and you're gonna think this is stupid and like that I'm is the Olympics. Because I understand that for these people, one of the ones that I probably said this, I will watch once every 6 months when I'm sitting around, I will watch Tara Lipinski win the gold I think she won in Nagano in like 92.
Okay.
Because I know she was 14 or 15. She was young.
Really young.
And I know that she could have come back at 19. But in the Olympics, it's not like the Masters in golf. It's not like my brother's a Major League Baseball player. They had 18 seasons to try to make an all-star team, to try to make the playoffs, to try to make the World Series.
Right.
Like it is in the Olympics, you've got one shot when you're at your peak, maybe two, and I guess depending on your event, there's a couple. You could maybe 2 or 3 or 4 if you're.
Yeah.
But there's like where you're the best. The Michael Phelpses that came back multiple times are the anomaly.
Yeah.
Like you have one time where you're the best in the world.
Yeah.
And the pressure for this event, there aren't 72 holes where you can go out and make birdie.
Right.
Like Tara Lipinski had one time in her long program, and listening when you watch it through, because you should go check it out as you prepare for the Olympics, even though that was winter and this is summer.
Yeah.
Vern Lundquist is on the call because I've seen it so many times. Like it is Vern Lundquist.
Yeah.
And Scott Hamilton is the color guy. And Scott, he's dramatic. He's a figure skater anyway. But you can hear the angst in his voice because he knows what she's going through.
Yeah.
And like this jump, triple toe loop, triple salt cow, and he knows that she's done this a million times. But this 2-jump combination, it means her whole skating life. She either hits it and she might win, or she falls and she's going to take 5th and then she's nobody.
Yeah.
And she's 15 freaking, she might have been 14.
Yeah.
She wasn't 16. And so those emotions of me get to, because this is their only shot. It's their one audition. And so that I'm more emotional with the Olympics than most things.
No, that makes sense.
But I'm not sobbing.
I am always more emotional with the teams we have that lose than the teams that win.
Amen.
I think in the my 11 years of helping at Loyal Sock, I believe we have medaled 10 times, and I think we have 3 silvers. And they are by far more emotional for me than the 6 golds.
Well,
by far. It's not even close.
I don't know how many buzzer beaters you've come to, but as a coach, understanding that these are teenage kids.
Yeah.
If the shot, game is on the line, kid takes a shot, you feel way worse for the kid that misses than you feel happy for the kid that hits it.
Yes, absolutely. So, and some of that's like just being able to relate to them, but it is like it's the idea of just like you will never get that moment back, and it is gone. Yes, like I still love you as a player. I don't love you any less that you didn't hit the shot, and you can't. How do you express that?
You
to
can't
them
relay it in the moment.
No.
In the heartbreak, you can't take the heartbreak away.
Mm-mm.
And it's like the kid who hits the shot. You don't need me right now. I don't need to make anything better. Because we can end the show because you don't think anyone's listening. There is no one. You know why I don't think anyone's listening? Because no one is listening.
That's fine. So like interpersonal, because I don't think you and I have ever talked about this. So small town, we lost the district championship, which like high school sports, I get it. It's not everything for everybody. In a small town though, they do carry like a higher significance for the community and what you're doing.
And let's be honest, you lost because you stunk.
I did. This is a true story.
Kidding.
No, I was like 3 for 15. Like I played one of the worst games of my high school career in the district championship.
Sorry. I didn't
No, you're fine. I mean, that's what we're talking about. So afterwards, when we're playing, afterwards, when we're done playing, we're down in the thing, and I'm kind of like a zombie. And I'll never forget, like the first thing I could muster out is I just looked at my coach and I was like, that's it. It's over. Because it was just that like sinking realization. It wasn't necessarily that we had lost. It was that we were never going to get to win. And just that totality of it, I'll never forget that was just like the only thing. So to your point, what do you portray to that person? How do you even get them out of that funk or get them to like, because when that floods over you of like, that is it is finished, you will never get the opportunity to try. Because I think most athletes, they would dust themselves off and say, let's try again. Like, let's go. Like, let's try again. But like that totality, like to your point with the Olympics,
you don't always go
over. It's finished. Because even if you want to dust yourself off and try again, which you've been so trained to do over and over again, you can't. And that's what rocks you. It's not necessarily the losing. It's the not being able to do what you've been trained to do, which is get up and go again.
And I think for a lot of these athletes, it's relief that they didn't. I wonder
You're talking about
the Olympics,
winners.
Just in the Olympics, because of you have to wait 4 years, and especially the ones that know they're good, that like when Michael Phelps is on the starting block, and he's like, I'm supposed to win.
Mm-hmm.
When he wins, is it how much of it of you deal with multiple emotions? How much of it is I'm pumped because I just proved that I'm the best in the world, or I'm relieved because I was supposed to win and all I could do was either do what I was supposed to do or I could screw it up. We had a wrestler from Montoursville, the one Hoffman. I always get the names wrong. Gavin, I think, was the younger one. He was like 3-time state champ. And I know, like, the first time he won, he's like pumped. He's like, hey, I'm first time. That one of the years later that he was like, I'm just relieved that it's over, because once you get to that point that you're so good, you either win and everyone expects you to win, or you fail, and that's the story. You know, when Michael Phelps, once he was so good, him winning isn't a story. Him not winning becomes a story. Right. So that's the pressure to not fail. So those are all the dramas that go into why I like the Olympics.
So my personal opinion, the only way to combat that, right? Because that is the quandary, right? Like once you're successful, you being successful is no longer news, which you nailed that. To me, the only way to combat that, and you've asked me before, like you always say all the time, are you nervous, right? You'll say like, are you nervous for the game tonight? Are you nervous for that? And I've said to you several times, like, I'm not, because I feel like I've done everything I could have done. So I feel like for some of those guys, whether it's Phelps or whoever it may be, your only way to combat that is you've just put all your time and all your effort, and you truly internally believe I did everything I possibly could. So whatever happens here happens. But I've done everything I can. I think the people who struggle with that are the people who look back and feel like they could have done more.
And I think it's what also makes we've got bored with Michael Jordan winning. We got bored with Tom Brady winning. We got bored with LeBron James always being in the finals, always being in contention. But there is a trick that they have in their head to force themselves to strive to compete. When Tom Brady, now with Tampa was different, because Tom Brady winning with Tampa was a new challenge. But but for Michael Jordan, like his whole, I have to three-peat. Now I have to three-peat again. And the way that there are only a few that could trick themselves into like, it's still me against the world. Nobody believes that I'm good enough, that they have to fight that, because there are a lot of people that can't, that once they reach the mountaintop, they can't drive themselves again. And only those very rare, great ones, Tiger Woods was one of them, that can force themselves to be good again. That when everyone's like, well, you're already the best, and then they have to go prove it again. It's one of the challenges.
It is. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show.
Why are you saying that? There's no one left.
There's lots of people. We've got to go over this. Do you not like the people that are still listening?
No, I do. If there were any, I believe we're talking to ourselves.
There are.
Okay. Well, if there are people that stuck with us, or people that maybe, I guess there's people that jump in mid-show.
Yes.
And okay, so
and
I can
fluctuate
see that.
in and out, and they.
Okay, maybe.
For some people, they're the only part of the show that they saw today when they jumped on the screen was me saying no one's listening.
Okay, that's fair. I'll give you that. There is no one that stuck with us from the beginning.
There might be. There's some people that, believe it or not, some people like you. I know that's hard to believe.
Yeah, I believe that. They just don't listen to me very long.
Thank you guys for watching. Thank you to Weis Markets for being our title sponsor. Be sure to go there for all your grocery needs. And be sure to check out NorthcentralPa.com for all your local news. You can check out the baby deer story. I'm sure we'll continue to check up on the shooting here in Williamsport, Pennsylvania.
Check out Allie DeBicki.
Yes, check out Allie DeBicki.
God bless her.
Who gave us a shout out. And we appreciate it. Anything else before they go?
It just dawned on me how hungry I am.
Yeah, I saw you were sneaking chips there under the desk.
I was eating pretzels. I've eaten half.
I don't mean to put you on blast, but
this bag of pretzels that was here, it's no longer.
I'm surprised one of the microphones didn't die. Go ahead and talk.
Hello.
No, the mics made it. That surprises me.
I'm starving.
Okay, let's go get you something to eat.
Are you hungry?
Always.
Let's go eat.
Let's go eat. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
When we're